Welcome everyone to our ISWA Road to COP special, which is live from COP 30 today. For those of you who are new to ISWA, the International Solid Waste Association, we began our journey in 1970 and we promote sustainable, environmentally sound waste and resource management globally and also encourage the transition to a circular economy. We're a member-based association headquartered in the Netherlands, and our community spans individuals, municipalities, companies, organizations, technology providers, NGOs, you name it. So if you're interested in this space, in waste and resource management in any way, we are the place to be. You can join us. You can find a lot of information about us on our website, iswa.org, and you'll find all the information that you need on our website. So just to give you a little bit of context, as the climate COP or the UNFCCC COP is underway in Belém in Brazil, our message is quite simple. It's about the fact that waste is a greenhouse gas reducing sector. And when we design systems for prevention, for organics management, recycling, and energy recovery, we see a lot of benefits, very tangible benefits. And going back a decade or so, when ISWA first began engaging at the UNFCCC COP, which is basically the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Conference of Parties. So every convention meets a yearly or maybe every 2 years. We started participating over a decade ago. And at that time, we were just trying to get the message out that our sector is a climate reducing sector. We can have a big impact. It's a low hanging fruit and so on. We were applying for side event slots to make the case that we provide solutions. Fast forward to today, emissions from waste, especially you hear of methane, black carbon from open burning, these are well recognized as low-hanging fruit for very rapid action. So now our focus is moving away from visibility and awareness to delivery on the ground, getting explicit, trackable, measurable progress into the NDCs and into financing discussions and scaling context-specific portfolios that work on the ground. That's what we want to do. So ahead of this year's COP in Belém, we launched the Waste Atlas that you see on the left hand of your screen, and also a Waste Management and Climate Change Declaration, which we do annually. And both of these documents can be found on our website quite freely for you to download to see what actions you can take as solution providers. So I'm very honored to be moderating today's webinar, which is part of our Road to COP series. And we have a great lineup of speakers joining us today. We have Siegfried Scholz, who's the country president in Germany for Canadavia Innova. He's actually sitting in Belém as we speak. We have with us Malik Kerker. He's the Carbon Projects Director at Suez. We also have Corinne Tronsdorf, who's the CEO of the French Solid Waste Partnership and also an ISWA board member. And finally, we have Vanessa Fakra, who is Director of Regulation and Market Access at Canadavia Innova. So each of them is going to be talking about their experience at the COP this year and previous years and so on, what the key messages that they would like to the decision makers, to send to decision makers from around the globe, from different countries about what actions they can take in our sector. Because I won't go into the real, the context of the whole waste management scenario globally. You can find that in our reports, but it's bleak. Things haven't changed in the last decade. 2 billion people still lack access to just basic waste management services like collection, safe disposal, and so on. And so keeping all that in mind, we want to hear from the experts that we have with us today. So without further ado, we'll dive right in. I want to start with Corinne first, because Corinne has been participating and she was very central to our planning of, how do I stop sharing this one? Okay, I can. I stop sharing and I'm going to ask Corinne to present because she has been central to our discussions and our preparations for the COP events leading up to the COP in Belém. She was in Rio and she was discussing things with a lot of stakeholders and partners and mayors on the ground. So Corinne, you can share your screen and I will stop. Thank you. Yes, we can see your screen. Yes, perfect.
And you can hear me as well.
Perfectly.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We actually, as Aditi just introduced, held a side event or a pre-COP event on November 6th in Rio de Janeiro. This event happened just after the Mayors Summit organized by C40 in Rio, and was an opportunity to mobilize local governments and local authorities. The backbone, oh, here you have just a little impression of the event itself, with approximately 100 participants in a very nice venue that hosted actually the student during the dictatorship. That's where the students were gathering, and it was a very beautiful space. The backbone of the event was around this, what we've called the 3D narrative, and the name of the event was the 3D Future Forum, as the city of Rio really wanted to name this event that way. The reason why we called it this 3D is because of this narrative. The history of waste management is really that people wanted to have a clean, immediate environment and protect their health. This is how waste management started. 30 or 20 years ago, we realized that we're actually emitting way too much GHG emissions. And we started thinking about how waste management can actually contribute to decarbonizing or defossilizing. And that's where waste to energy started coming into play. That's where we started thinking about diverting organic waste from landfills, at least in Europe and in a few other places. And more recently, we've realized that if we actually want to achieve the decontaminate and the decarbonize, we have to reduce the amount of waste that is generated, because it's just too costly otherwise to achieve these objectives. And we need to decouple growth, economic growth, from the generation of waste. And that's because waste management costs too much, but also because we have planetary limits. Earth overshoot days happening halfway through the year, every year in the last few years, and showing that our resource consumption is just not sustainable. In order to really achieve this decoupling, or the true circular economy transition, 4 other components are needed: integrated planning and governance, sustainable production and consumption, transparency and traceability, and a just transition. All of these actions will be taken by people who each have a role and a responsibility in their respective institutions, and their actions collaboratively will contribute to achieving the whole of the SDGs. So this 3D narrative was an opportunity to bring together, to bring a dialogue between national governments, local authorities, international organizations, and the private sector, to really bring that pre-COP discussion to that, around the topic that it's not just about decarbonizing, but really about concomitantly achieving these 3 objectives of decontaminate, decarbonize, and decouple growth from the generation of wastes. The event actually leveraged the atlas that Aditi mentioned just earlier, and which actually was produced to inspire a better integration of waste and resources management activities in the NDCs, even though these activities are often not reported under what is called the waste sector in the climate community. A lot of the activities carried by waste and resources managers are actually reported in the climate community under transport, under energy, under industry sectors. And so this is important to understand because it makes the waste sector kind of invisible in the climate community, even though it can have a huge impact if all these activities are implemented. The discussion during that pre-COP event, which took the whole day on November 6th, were articulated around three sessions. And the first session was on prevention. So also along these major levers for action to reduce GHG emissions from waste management activities. Prevention is impactful in two ways. First, you produce less waste, so you don't have all the emissions associated to waste management itself, but also you have less production, and therefore you reduce emissions from the whole production industrial phase. What was discussed is that achieving this type of action is a long-term action. It's not something that can happen from one day to the next. It requires to mobilize a large array of stakeholders and competency profiles. For example, one of the things that was mentioned is that we're missing marketeers around the discussion table. Oftentimes, they're not involved, and in order to change business models, they will be a key competency to have at the discussion table. The second session of the day focused on the levers on the implementation of ESM of waste, of environmentally sound management of wastes, by local authorities and local governments, and the challenges that they face. So this is a big lever in terms of GHG reductions because it can reduce drastically, improving waste management can drastically reduce methane emissions from poor organic waste management, and also black carbon, which is not a GHG emission, but particles that have a very strong global warming impact, and that result from open burning of waste, which is a typical alternative chosen by citizens or even cities sometimes when they don't have any other sound management system in place. Now, in order to transition to having ESM of waste everywhere by cities, the key messages that came out of that discussion were that first of all, it's not just the local authorities by themselves that can solve that problem. They need to be able to work together with other stakeholders, with the national level, with the private sector, with education. So all of those stakeholders need to be involved. And the main challenges that they face were articulated as relating to competency level, so capacity and competency, finance, the ability to pay for both the investment but also the operational costs of running waste management facilities and waste management collection, and the institutions to actually enforce the laws that exist. Most of them coming from many countries, but also from Brazil, quite a lot from Brazil in that case, highlighted the fact that the laws exist, but the enforcement is not there. So that was for the second session. And then we finished with a third session that was focused more on methane and reducing methane leakage to the atmosphere, but also harnessing methane as a resource, as an energy source. And there, it was interesting to see that It's an opportunity for the private sector because the business model can be developed around this activity. However, we always need to keep in mind that the whole of waste management remains a cost for the local government in charge. So even though there might be a business model on part of the system, the whole of waste management from collection to final disposal remains a cost. And therefore, a robust OPEX, operational costs financing system, whether it's a fiscal system, whether it's based on EPR, however it is based on, it is a need in order for this whole waste management system to be operational, even if the private sector can also invest in it for part of the activities. We then just finished with a call to join a movement, to join that 3D movement, which if you join, you'll hear more about it. So that's the QR code to join. And ISWA will be playing a very strong role in further shaping that 3D narrative in the next few months, together with its scientific and technical committee and all of its members. So hopefully you join the movement. I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Corinne. That was a very nice comprehensive overview, and you've also introduced us to the 3D thinking or the 3D future. And I love that you highlighted enforcement and the fact that waste will, in totality, will always remain a cost for local bodies. And so we need to think of financing models really carefully. Thank you so much for your presentation. And so from pre-COP design, let's move to on-the-ground signals from Belém. So we're going live now. I can see Siegfried smiling. He's right there in the thick of it. We also, I mean, all of them are basically COP returnees. So Siegfried, let's go to you. Tell us how it is on the ground. What's the energy like? Your perspectives. Share something with us.
Yes, thank you very much. Do you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Okay, very well. I'm happy to share a few impressions from COP30. Let me start with my beer. I don't have a beer. I have a very nice juice, and I'm living from juice over here because, well, it's very hot. Well, if it was a target to convince attendees that the climate can become too hot, the organizers achieved that really. Yesterday, we had a torrential tropical storm where even in the negotiation halls, water came through the roof. Quite impressive. And yeah, I'm at the quiet spot here at COP30, the only one I found over the last couple of days, and which is luckily also cool because it helps me charge my computer and my phone, because outside it's so hot they won't even charge, they will overheat. Just to get an impression that this heat is really well, demanding. You may wonder anyways whether it's worth sending 60,000 people or so around the planet to save the climate during COP. This is only my second COP, and despite of all the arguments you may hold against it, it's obvious to me a place like this where greenhouse gas emission reductions are negotiated peacefully and transparently is not the worst that can happen to our societies and to the planet. Well, I saw during the last days, even the Russian and the Ukrainian delegate somehow commenting on paragraph 6.4 of the Paris Agreement, which, well, is kind of progress in this world. I could convince myself of that during a number of events here, and of course also by attending and by contributing to panels in the blue zone and the green zone. So the progress, also probably we all find this is too slow progress, will be made despite of some countries boycotting the event. I think everybody knows which country I'm mainly referring to. Well, one of the things, and you asked about feeling the heat here. One of the things which was annoying me to read over the weekend that there are 1,600 fossil lobbyists, and basically the NGOs are trying to drive the 1,600 fossil lobbyists out of next COP. I think this is outrageous, and I wonder also whether I am a fossil lobbyist. I wouldn't describe myself as. It's worth noting that methane and waste management as topics have made it very high up on the agenda. That's quite clear. There were plenty of panels, plenty of side events, and the importance of methane overall is important for everyone. It is less clear, though, what needs to be done to really change things. It starts with the fact that even here at COP, we are the most privileged bunch of people over the world, and also knowledgeable about environmental things. We can't manage to have the two bins here. There are two bins provided at COP, brown and blue. The brown bags are for bio waste and the blue bags for packing waste. It's so simple, the system, and even here, people don't respect it. It's not important to them. So we have a long way to go if it comes to educating people all over the planet to behave more environmentally friendly, if even at COP this does. What has become also clear to me is that the social and the environmental aspect of waste management are going hand in hand, and a huge educational effort is still needed. Vanessa will tell you a bit more about the waste pickers associations, which were present basically in various panels, and they have their say, rightfully so, I must say. And when new strategies and technologies are put in place, like waste to energy, I think it's in all our interest to take their interests on board and to give them an opportunity for clean and safe jobs in the future. Otherwise, we will not be able to advance modern equipment in these places. Let me conclude by thanking ISWA for the opportunity to be here and to represent the association. And I hope that in the next year, it will also be possible again to have a booth, an ISWA booth in the blue zone, because I think that's where it belongs to be. I would like to conclude it for now. In a minute, it will take me a moment to unpack, and you will have the chance to walk with me through the hallways. But now I would like to hand over to Vanessa.
Thank you, Siegfried. And hopefully, yes, amen to that, that we have a booth or a pavilion next year as well in a big way. So thank you so much. It was really nice to hear your perspective, and it's quite unfortunate about what you described as the waste situation in the bins there. Hopefully, we will all learn and move from there. I'm going to move to now Vanessa. She's just returned from COP. She's participated at a lot of events, side events in the blue zone and also green, where she's represented ISWA and Canadavia. So you've been, Vanessa, at both COPs. So you were in Baku last year, 29, and now this year at COP 30. For you, where do you think, NDCs, waste, all this discussion, do you see a big difference from 29 to 30, especially on the waste and resource management discussion?
Thanks a lot, Aditi, for letting me the stage now. Yeah, so I came from the fruit juice to the herbal tea because I came from 30 degree to 4 degree back home, like Corinne did. And thanks to ISWA and also CWEP that I represented in Blue Zone this year for letting us the opportunity to represent the waste sector in this event. I think this is key that the waste sector goes on get visibility at COP, because we are at the core of the mitigation, GHG mitigation topic. And so as you said, it's my third COP. So I attended COP 28 in Dubai in Green Zone. I was with ISWA in Baku last year in Green Zone. And this year is my first time in Blue Zone. Both zones do play their role. Clearly, just for everyone to know, the Blue Zone gathers all the negotiations between politicians, and you have also national pavilion and some which organize lots of events, and you have also like side events, official side events. The blue zone will set what must be done and how it will be financed. And the green zone will be the core of innovation, sharing, social inclusion, education of the public. And it will show how it can be done and by whom. So both are really important. And I think ISWA has its place in both places, to be honest. And the fact that you had a pavilion was a key advantage. So that's something we need to repeat next year in blue zone or in green zone, but you need to be there because it gives a lot of visibility. Coming back to the waste sector, I think the shift was taken during COP28. I think the COP28 in Dubai initiated the current chapter by prioritizing waste management and launching key tools like the WEBS map and the lowering organic waste methane initiative. And it led directly to the specific sectoral commitment established at COP29 in Baku. I don't know if all of you remember, but in Baku, there were this specific sectoral commitment focused on mitigation by reducing methane emission from landfill and organic waste. So it was a big commitment. And I think that the mention at COP30 is that we are not focusing only on methane emission. We integrate organic waste into a holistic system approach, emphasizing on the whole transformation of the entire food system. And we speak a lot about bioeconomy. As I see it in two words, biogas and waste pickers were at the core of the topics in most of the panels. So we look at climate, biodiversity, health, and social justice. And so COP30 was about the objective, and now COP28 is mostly about the implementation and the financing. And I don't know if you heard about, but there have been the No Organic Waste Plan, which has been launched. So it's not now, it's now. So it has been launched by UNEP, Global Methane Hub, and COP30 presidency, and their goal is really to invest Global Methane Hub announced, I think, $30 million. So things are moving, not as fast as possible as we would wish, but they are moving. My main feedback, my personal feedback, is I think we should be careful about idealism. What I see is that the main actor who represent waste management at COP are Global Methane Hub, CACC, Gaia, and Waste Pickers Association. Of course, human rights must be at the core, and I promote the role of waste pickers in the global waste management. But we shouldn't, by believing and pushing some kind of zero waste belief, close the door to tremendous efficient solution, proven solution in Europe, in Asia, that we will need. Waste is growing, demography is growing, cities are growing in Africa, in South America, and in urban area, we will need to reduce waste, and we will have a tremendous need of energy locally. And we shouldn't, forget that there is always some residual waste, contaminated waste, which cannot be recycled, and which contains some material that we don't want to see in the recycling stream. You don't want to see PFAS in the recycling stream. You don't want to see pollutant in the recycling stream. And what do you do with all the waste? We have 30% of waste stocked in dump site. This waste is contaminated. What will you do with this waste? So I think that what I see as a danger at this COP is that we tend to, displace the real problem and minimize maybe the effects that can have some solutions that will be needed. Of course, it is important to have a counterbalance view to ensure that like waste to energy or biogas solutions are developed in coherence with the local realities, with the right regulation in place, with the right target in the NDC, so that we respect the waste hierarchy and the global waste management balance. So that's for my key feedback.
Thank you, Vanessa. You gave us a little like a snapshot on Waste Management 101 in some ways. Yes, ISWA has been very careful with, we've been discussing with the scientific and technical committee, the chair and the vice chair, especially about what zero waste means for ISWA. So we've, talked a lot about moving towards zero waste because physically, by the law of thermodynamics, as we've talked about last year, we spent a whole hour talking about this. It's not possible to have really literally zero waste. Of course, the movement is trying to say we need to have reduction targets and so on and so forth. So that discussion is ongoing, and you brought in the 3Ds really well as well. That Corinne just explained, this whole 3D future that we've been thinking about also, and the waste hierarchy. That has to be one of the key discussion points when you start out. And context specific, we can't say it more than enough. It has to be context specific. Waste management challenges are different in different places. Of course, there are general principles that you abide by, but when you have solutions, the financing mechanisms, it's so rooted in the culture, the context, and so on. So we've heard the signals, we've got the feedback from on the ground. Thank you. I want to pivot to Malik now, because we started the discussion with all the stock. We are on COP 30. That means we've had 30 COPs. 30 years of COPs. We've been talking, of course, the waste sector rose in prominence in the last, 5-6 years, and we had the waste pavilion for the first time in COP 28 in Dubai. So that was a success. And so we've, we did a lot of work prior to that. There have been experts for the last 30 years working on this. You've seen Professor David Wilson writing the books and then going from GWMO 1 to 2 to 24. Things haven't changed much. So Malik, I want you to come in and tell us, give us the solutions. No, I'm kidding. Give us your perspective of what we can do quickly on the ground from our sector. We've heard the signals. Can you tell us from your side what we can really do to achieve better wins and faster wins?
Okay, so thank you, Aditi, to give me the floor today. I will speak as I have two roles within Suez, with a leader in waste management and circular economy. I'm expert in carbon finance for the group, but also a business developer for the waste division in Africa. So when you asked me to participate to this webinar, I thought, okay, I can complain or I can try to give a reflection on I was not there 30 years ago, but I have 20 years of experience. I will try to give you a feedback of what I see that is going on, and I hope it will be a positive message, independently of what happens and the lobbyist you see, Siegfried, in Belém. So let me share my screen. You tell me if you can see it. Oh, I don't know.
Yes, perfectly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right. I think we all agree around the table that sustainable waste management, transitioning to a more circular economy, having a methane being on the top of the agenda is essential to have a real impact on climate, especially in the waste sector. But all these objectives or wishes, it comes at a price, as Corinne said. Waste management has a cost, okay? And so you're asking me what is the solution. For me, the solution is quite simple. We need to work together hand by hand, all the stakeholders, and mainly public authority and private sector. And I will try to illustrate it by a few examples, coming from my past career, working 20 years within Suez in waste management. So I say we need close collaboration between public and private sector. What can bring the public sector? I think the public sector can bring leadership, it can bring vision and policies, but policies not only at national level, and it's very important that there are commitments at NDC levels, but it must go one step further. You know, it needs to be declined and expressed at regional and local level, you know, like at the city level. And that's what we need from the public sector. When the public sector has the leadership, the vision, the policy in place, then the private sector can bring the solution. You know, we have Caladevia on the call. We speak about Waga Energy also, who is providing technology. The technology are there, they are reliable, they are innovative when needed, and they can be brought by the private sector that can contribute to the whole value chain of waste management. You know, from structuring the project, finding the adequate technology, reliable or innovative, build, operate the facility, and Corinne say it's very important that the private sector can operate the facility on the long term for the performance and to limit the climate impact, and secure long-term agreement for offtake or the energy of the recyclable. So I will now spend some time trying to illustrate it with 3 examples, and I will try to be quite fast. I will not speak about all Suez achievements in circular economy, recycling waste, plastics, etc. I will focus on my personal experience. And I will start with the example on the left, CITA ISWA, UK. 20 years, in 2017, I moved to the UK to work on the PFI projects. My son was only 3 months old. Now he's 18 years old. And I would like to illustrate that in 18 years, tremendous progress have been made. Okay, so maybe people see that things are not moving fast enough, but in the life of my son, it's incredible what happened. So I will try to go and be fast, but I moved there to work on PFI projects. So the target was for the UK at the time to deliver new facilities to avoid penalty because they were landfilling too much waste. So the target was landfill diversion, okay? And the UK government set in place strong teams on the public side to put in place a lot of tenders and implement mainly energy from waste facility, recycling facilities, etc. And I was project developer at the time, and I helped build the facility that you see on the top, that is the Tiffs Valley. 18 years after, okay, so we have moved from landfill. We are producing electricity, a lot of electricity from waste. But now the UK government is going one step further. Is putting in place is committing to have energy from waste, or the waste sector in the UK ETS, and is putting in place what it calls contract for difference, which is a supporting mechanism that will help project developer to capture CO2 from industry, but also from energy from waste, and store it in offshore underground storage. And they put in place a mechanism that secures the revenue both for the CapEx and also for the OpEx for capturing the CO2 and for transporting it and sequestrating it into the geology deep in the ocean. So in 18 years, things have moved very fast. Of course, you cannot say that this can be repeated. UK is one example. They have resources, and maybe you won't see that in other geography, and especially in Africa. But still, beyond the commitment of the NDC, you can see a lot of things moving. I will take another example. South Africa, we operate a facility at Vissershop in the Cape region. There, it's a completely different story. In South Africa, there is no obligation to, when you landfill waste, to capture the landfill gas and destroy it. But still, the government in South Africa has implemented a carbon tax that is imposed on CO2 emitters. And if you are operating a landfill and you are capturing and recovering energy from the landfill gas, you can claim carbon credits that you can sell to emitters to avoid to pay their tax. Currently, the tax price in South Africa is around $8 per ton of CO2. And by 2030, it would be $15-20 per ton of CO2, which is way above the voluntary carbon market. What does it allow? We are developing a project thanks to this carbon tax and the sale of carbon credits, which will be secured by the mechanism, the carbon tax in place in South Africa. We will capture the landfill gas, first destroy it, but since we have the money to capture the landfill gas, which is not required by law, then we are going to make a second step of the project where we're going to convert the landfill gas into methane and sell it to industrial in the Cape area. Again, all is possible because in South Africa, the authority are strong and they are not moving from the implementation and the increase of the carbon tax price. And finally, I will finish with an example in Tunisia, which I've been trying to develop for a couple of years now. Tunisia, again, there is no obligation under the law to capture the landfill gas for the waste that is landfill. But last summer, the authority have decided on the feed-in tariff. So when you produce electricity from landfill, you can receive a very high price. Today, when you are trying to, before this regulation, when you wanted to export electricity produced from landfill gas, you could only expect $30 per megawatt hour. Now, the authority in Tunisia, they have decided to have a special feed-in tariff, which is now 90 euro per megawatt hour. And it makes all the difference. And thanks to this feed-in tariff, we will be able, hopefully, if we finalize the project, to implement 10 megawatts of electricity. You can see the picture on the bottom hand side of what could be built thanks to this law that has been passed last summer. And I think it will be done very quickly. So my message is a lot of things have been done in developed countries, but still a lot of things are moving in emerging countries because you have local authorities that are willing to implement strong incentives and they are working together with the private sector to implement reliable and cost-effective solutions. That's my message for today, Aditi.
Thank you, Malik. That's a lot to take in. You've loved that you gave examples from all around the world and with different contexts and things. Many questions arise in my mind, but I'm not going to ask. In the interest of time, we have about 18 minutes, and I did want to give Siegfried the chance. He already started. He's now giving us a live tour through the hallways of the COP venue. Can you guys see it well on your screen? So he's just basically just walking down the corridor. It's almost like a music video. We can just, yeah. Siegfried, do you want to say something? Where are you? Yes, go ahead.
Well, I am just going, I'm in the blue zone and then going from the entrance of from the green zone into the area of the pavilions. On the left and right side, you see all the meeting rooms, the plenaries, and also the offices, the official offices of all the parties taking part at COP. You see, well, it's a very crowded ambience, and it's like that all day. It's like that from 9 in the morning to 8:30 in the evening. So, well, yeah.
Very comforting to know that people are working hard on this climate issue.
Yeah.
Except that they're not separating their waste into the bins, but yeah.
Exactly. They are not only here for tourism. I just want to give you an impression here, and I don't want to spoil the idea. Just follow me with the impression if you want. And well, I will close down the mic now because there's also background noise here.
Thank you, Siegfried. That was really nice to walk around with you. So you can, do that. We do have questions in the chat and active. It's been active chat so far. Vanessa, you can read the question too, or should I read it out for you?
No, it's okay. The one from Yao Diaz?
Yes, from Yao Diaz.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe for everyone to know the question, Yao, sorry if I pronounce it not correctly, asked a really good question. I mean, it makes sense in the current context, is what is still missing for waste to energy solutions to be fully aligned with the EU taxonomy framework? And I will let Siegfried of course complement my answer, but as I see it, we are in a curious situation where some of the features from the waste to energy facility are aligned and recognized by the taxonomy, like the metal recovery, all the resource recovery that waste to energy induced is part of the taxonomy currently, but the facility itself is not part. And as part as I am concerned, I would think that what we need is to have a recognition of the waste getting into the waste to energy as a fatal waste, an unavoidable waste. So that might maybe need more stringent pre-acceptance criteria for the waste getting in the waste to energy. But because waste to energy is meant to treat non-recyclable waste. So, and if waste to energy treats the waste that has no better solution to be treated, it should be eventually considered as an avoidable waste. And then waste to energy should be fully aligned with the taxonomy. But I think this needs still more time in terms of regulation to come. So that's my point. If Siegfried, you want to comment, don't.
No, it's fine. I don't know whether you just saw that I cast the protesters, which are also here every day, and different kinds of organizations. They're given a chance, which I think is the right thing to do, because there's different stakeholders, and they all need to have their right of expression.
Thank you, Siegfried. Can you also show us the bins, please? The famous bins. How do they look? How big are they? For such a big conference, there should be quite a few around.
Well, I'm very close to bins. Let's check on those two which I see now. It's not something we have staged. But the chances are they're quite empty because it's early in the morning. Wait a minute.
True. It's early in the morning. Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
The brown bin.
Okay,
Oh, it's full of plastics.
No, I think we were well organized. Huh?
I think that's the point. That's the bio bin. Okay. That's as much as that needs to be proven.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
Okay, I think we have a lot of work to do, huh? Good. Okay, so
just maybe to complement, sorry, what Joao said, and because I think we shouldn't forget that waste to energy, maybe the name will be changed in the coming years, because the idea to get the best resources out of the non-treatable waste. So that's why we shouldn't look at waste to energy from the energy point of view, but we shouldn't forget that its primary role is to give a service to the society of sanitization. So that was just what I wanted to add. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I encourage all speakers, Corinne, Malik, to come in at any of these questions. Yeah, Corinne, do you want to add something to this discussion?
No, I think this, as Vanessa was saying, I think the crux is to ensure everybody understands that waste to energy, or whatever it ends up being called, is about treating the non-recyclable wastes. And I think that's where the big misunderstanding comes from today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was talking to some of you about this, right? There's actually people studying the science behind recycling. Recycling is all well and good, but there is an exact point at which it becomes more expensive in terms of the input of useful energy that you put into the system. So if you want to keep recycling till the very end, you have to put a lot more energy in than you get out. And so then when you look at it from a systemic perspective, you need to see, does it actually make sense? Because you are putting virgin useful energy called exergy in physics into the system. So that's a debate that one has to have. And that's really nice what Vanessa said and what Corinne added to. It's a final sink. It's where things go to live forever. And obviously, you don't want to do it right up top. That's why the whole pyramid is an inverted pyramid, because most of it, you want to get the benefits out up early. Very little goes to final sinks and safe disposal, because you want to decontaminate your cycles. But anyway, that's not the webinar. We're talking about COP and climate. Vanessa, you wanted to add something?
No, I'm vertically aligned, and it's a really good point that we need to really spend more time speaking about recycling from a quality output and life cycle analysis perspective. This is key. And like when we speak about 65% of target or recycling, I don't know if everyone in the public know if it's the input to recycling or the output. because the residues from the recycling industry are huge. And I think what would be really useful, not only in emerging countries, would be to train everyone at school to know which plastic can be recyclable. Because lots of this plastic, we don't know, we put it in trash and only half of it can be recyclable. But it went through facilities with Scotch energies, and then it goes on trucks, who goes back to waste to energy facility. And we would win lots of energy in the system by educating people, even in Nordic countries. Sorry, that was just a point.
Oh my gosh, calling out just 3-4 countries. No, I'm kidding. No, this discussion is really good because at the ISWA STC, the Scientific and Technical Committee, the chair and the vice chair, we are discussing exactly this reduction targets. And if you look at Jane's comments up there, it's about, okay, the population increase, which many areas in the world are going to have. And then there's the waste generation that goes with the population increase because of consumption. So the latter is not very talked about. It's politically sensitive, and we are trying to address and come up with a good way of quantifying these numbers and things within the STC. Jane, if you want to type in any messages in the chat, please do. And I do have some questions going back to the climate angle, because we've all talked about the NDCs. The big message that we had 2-3 years ago is that let's get waste into the NDCs, right? At least the mention of waste. And now with Corinne's work, with the FSWP's work, the Atlas's work, we've said, okay, a lot of countries have mentioned NDCs, but do they mention actions? You know, like, are they specifically saying this is what we're going to do? Maybe some are, but I think most of the people that are mentioning waste and NDCs don't have exact targets or mechanisms or action points and so on in their agendas. And so if I go to all 4 of you, and Siegfried is walking now in a different area of the buildings, what would you say would be the single most concrete NDC measure on organics, methane, or whatever you want to say, that you would implement in the next few years? Because if you look at what Antonio Guterres said, I think a week before COP started, that we are going to be breaching the target of 1.5 by a huge margin. So what do you think in the next 2-3 years should be like the most focused on from our sector? What should we concretely do? Corinne, you want to start because you're on my left screen, and then Corinne,
Perfect.
Siegfried. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to be very short, I think that harnessing the production of methane and develop a local market for that energy would be a really good measure. It has to be thought through, adapted to the local context, though. And these solutions really need to be tailored.
Thank you for that succinct answer. Siegfried is next on my screen. Oh, yes. Okay. He's hearing us.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I would agree with Corinne that this needs to be adapted. The answer needs to be adapted to local needs. There is no one size fits all. I think we need to methane reductions, clear targets, but they need to be, well, country per country, situation per situation. It cannot be just one. And that needs to be as ambitious as possible. It is different for a country like Germany, where you have 100% of the organic waste treated outside landfills, than from a country where landfills is still the major source of major outlet for organic waste. It has to be. And I have seen yesterday a very good example of composting in Tuba in Senegal, which I think is a way to go ahead. Just with the Article 2.2 measures to finance on the ground projects which are very basic, but which actually redesign all the waste treatment in this country or in this city. I think that's a perfect example, and it just needs to be multiplied everywhere.
Thank you, Siegfried. Thank you for pointing out a project that's being implemented on the ground. I was speaking with Sandra, who's also commenting on our chat last week, and we talked about community-based systems and so on, because ultimately it's going to be each and every one of us, whether we are separating waste at source or not, and things like that. I mean, it's we are talking about these global solutions, but the practicalities of implementation are so concrete and real on the ground that it has to be this kind of top-down, bottom-up approach with everybody's consensus and so on. Because the systems, if if people don't agree with the system that you put in place, it's not going to work in the end, whether it's landfill diversion, organics management, and what all. Jane has put something in the chat as well. Is there a question? No, she's put a nice comment there.
Aditi, maybe if you allow me to
Malik,
comment
yes.
on this question about what's the best thing to be added on the NDC. Of course, as Corinne said, I mean, clear commitment on reducing methane emission, fugitive emission from waste would be obviously a perfect measure. But I think you need to keep in mind NDC. There is not one measure because it depends on each country. You know, I think in developed countries, I would be more inclined to say, for example, that there is commitment in having a reincorporation rate of recyclables into the value chain, you know, because that's what we're missing, you know. What I was mentioning is you can make all commitments you want, you cannot fight the economy, and you cannot fight the demography. And the economy is you can try and recycle as much as you want. If it's better from an economic point of view to to use material coming from fossil fuel, you cannot fight it, you know. It will be extremely difficult. So in developed countries, if you impose a reincorporation rate, and it's coming in many countries, but not fast enough, then you kill the bias of having this material coming from fossil fuels that are cheaper and you cannot fight it. So at the end of the day, it comes to finding commitments but going more into depth. Again, I will give you an example. In Tunisia, for many years in their NDC, they commit to reduce the emission from methane from waste that is landfill. Okay, but you can write that in the NDC. Until recently, that they have implemented this feed-in tariff for the landfill gas, they cannot do it because the local authorities, they don't have the money for that. So again, I think it's country by country, but what I believe is beyond the NDC is the leadership of local government, local politicians that believe of what they need to do for their community and that implements real regulation that have a real impact. So at NDC is important, but what is more important is how it is declined, what you can see below on the ground from local authorities.
Yeah, and if I can jump in on this point, and thanks a lot, Malik, because it's, I mean, I'm aligned with everything which has been said, and I think what we need is a urban strategic planning, depending on the countries. We know that composting will take maybe 1 day to 2.5 years, depending on the scaling, to be put in place. AD would be around 2.5 years to 3 years. Waste to energy will take 5 to 8 years. I don't speak about the erection of the plant. I speak about all the regulatory frameworks, handling the waste pickers, because the plant is only 3 years. When I speak about this duration, it's all included. The discussion with the government, we've seen that in our experience. So, I mean, we did NDC with, I mean, realistic and pragmatic targets. So the ultimate goal is banning all organic from landfill by 2027. But if you say that too early, or not 2027, it depends on the region. If you say that too early, everything will be dumped and you won't have won anything. So you need to do that with the correct regulation, with landfill levies put in place, but in the right timing. So this requires NDC plus urban strategic planning, local regulation. I'm fully aligned with you, and carbon finance. And that's a big, for me, deception from this COP. I have seen really few discussion on Article 6.2, 6.4, and we were expecting a lot. There are a lot, maybe I miss them. I hope I miss them. But I think we are waiting a lot from this finance from this financing to, especially to be injected in the waste sector. So Article 6.2 and 6.4 will be key instruments, in addition.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
to add, Vanessa, these negotiations, they were done, they were ongoing at COP. I mean, I attended one myself. So it's, well, I do not know whether the outcome is what we need, but there will be some outcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, we are running out of time. It always happens like this. But Corinne, do you want to say something very quickly, because then I'll
Yeah.
wrap up.
But
Yeah.
one last thing, rebounding on what Vanessa said, planification and urban leaders like Malik pointed to. I think these are the things we need to accelerate the change to providing the basic services to all those that do not have it yet, and make waste management services work. So know your waste. That's how planification starts. Know what waste you're producing. Choose solutions adapted to the local context, integrated with the other sectors, with the transport, energy, urban planning at large, and make sure you have a fiscal system or an EPR system, something that will ensure you have the right revenues to support your operational costs. That would be my final word.
You wrapped it up for me. Thanks, Corinne. That's great. Really, absolutely. I also like Zhao has put a comment, and he talks about the fact that, economies rely on natural resources and stuff, and so we do need to talk about climate and green finance and things. We will have more webinars and bring all these amazing people together to discuss things of importance. As I mentioned, this was a global member association, so it's membership based. Anyone can join us, anyone who's interested in working in the space. You can access guidance documents, technical reports on our website, join our working groups and events and study tours and so on. All of these details are on our website. And before we go much, much further, I'm just going to thank our speakers for today, Corinne, Siegfried, Vanessa, and Malik. Thank you so much for joining us and for this amazing discussion. Thank you all, the participants, for joining us as well. So thank you from India, Paris, Belém, from all over, and hope we see you the next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aditi. Bye.